Welcome to the Thea Lee podcast. It's January 2nd, 2026, and I am just going to continue with my commentary on my daily reading from the Bible. So, yesterday, of course, we started with the creation of the entire universe and Adam and Eve and them sinning in the garden. And I had a little bit of an epiphany with Eve not only having the consequence of pain in childbirth, but that the Lord told her that she would desire to control her husband and that her husband would rule over her. And that was something, I guess, that hit me different this year. And I realized that this human condition of a complicated relationship between man and woman literally started with the very first couple that were created. And then, of course, Adam has his consequence of toiling in the ground to get their food, and they have to leave the Garden of Eden. Today, we pick up where they start having children. So they have Cain and Abel. And again, I'm, I'm struck with the fact that the human condition has been around since the beginning of time because Cain and Abel have a sibling rivalry. Cain is the one who grows the crops, and Abel is the shepherd and tends to the flocks. And they both bring God an offering. Abel brings him the first and the best offspring from his flocks at harvest time, and then Cain, it says, just brings God some of his crop. God accepts Abel's gift but not Cain's. So I don't know. We don't know details here. I imagine that Cain's offering must not have been very impressive for God to say, hey, no thanks. And Cain gets angry. God gives him a warning. God says, hey, why are you angry? Be careful. Look, all you have to do is be right, and you will be accepted. So do good, and I will accept it. But be careful. If you refuse, sin is going to take over with you. And obviously, Cain refuses because he ends up killing his brother Abel. And so then God ends up sending Cain out. He says Cain cannot cultivate this ground anymore because his brother's blood is crying from the ground. Interestingly enough, when Cain is banished, he's really upset. He never seems to be upset that he killed his brother, but he's upset that he's going to be out of God's presence, and then he's worried that somebody will kill him because he will be homeless and alone. And so here's my question there is like, who else is on the earth? Because we only know about Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel at this point. So obviously there must be more people there, or maybe they're fallen angels, because we do know later that angels were there. But so he's concerned about that. God says, okay, I'm going to mark you so that people know you're mine, and that if anybody kills you, they will be punished 7 times over. So Cain leaves. He gets married and has children. So again, I don't know who else is on the earth, but he obviously finds a wife. His kids start to do different things. So he has one that raises livestock and lives in tents, but then he has another son that plays the harp and the flute. So now we have musical instruments. And then he has another son that becomes an expert at forging tools of bronze and iron. So we're starting to, get more and more, I don't know, more technical, more advanced. Just interesting here that Cain goes and starts like a civilization of his own. And then Adam and Eve later have a son called Seth. And Seth is evidently very much like his dad. And so then we have this timeline, this family tree of who is descended from who. So we go from Adam and his son Seth, and then Seth and his son Enosh, and then Enosh and his son Kenan, then Kenan and his son Mahalalel, and Mahalalel and his son Jared, and then Jared and his son Enoch. And Enoch is interesting because it makes a note when we get to Enoch that he lived in close fellowship with God for 300 years. And then one day he just disappears because God takes him. So Enoch, actually never died, I guess. So not only in heaven is there Jesus, who is in his living human body, but evidently Enoch is also. But so then Enoch's son is Methuselah. Then Methuselah's son is Lamech, and then Lamech's son is Noah. And obviously, most of us know the story of Noah. And Noah's name means, may he bring us relief from our work. So then we go into the story of Noah and the flood, and it starts talking about how the people on the earth were multiplying, and which makes sense because now we've got generations. And so they were these beautiful daughters of men. And the sons of God saw them and started having relations with them, and then they started having Nephilim children. So the sons of God are the fallen angels, to my understanding. And so now we have Nephilim, and they say that they were the heroes and famous warriors of ancient times. And then it talks about the wickedness on the earth, how horrible and evil everything began to be, and that by the time Noah comes around, he is the only blameless one. He is the only one who walks with God and knows God. So of course, God gives him the instructions to build the ark, to build the boat, to take his 3 sons and their wives, and of course his wife, and then that 2 of every animal will just show up when it's time. So God just evidently makes 2 of every animal on the earth just show up at Noah's place, and he's going to then kill the earth with a flood. So those are my readings today. So here's my takeaway: is that the human condition of having complicated relationships has been around since the very first people that were created. As a woman, when I read about Eve yesterday, I said, okay, I want to be careful not to be controlling, right? Because that's obviously a tendency. And then today, as I read about Cain and Abel, and Cain let his anger lead him into sin, then that says, okay, God told Cain that he could subdue sin and be its master, that he could have control over it. So obviously that makes me say that I want to subdue sin in my life also. So these are my thoughts for today. I hope that they are helpful to you. We'll see you again tomorrow. God bless you.